Mr. Alfonse Mathew, who will be moderating the session. Alfonse from McKinsey. And to join him in this discussion, we have Mr. Raja Parthasarathy, Mr. Pratik Pal, and Dr. Prashant Deshpande. May I request all of you to come onto the dais, please.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome them with a round of applause. The set of panelists for the business session number 3. Yeah. I'll remind them. Otherwise, support up to 4:15 now. May I have the AV for the panelists for this session, please.
Mr. Alfonse Mathew is an expert associate partner with McKinsey and Company based out of the Chennai office. He is a product development and operations practitioner with plus 10 years of experience of serving clients on margin transformation programs. His areas of expertise include design to value, modularity and configurability, consumer insights, product development capex, and manufacturing excellence. His clients include marquee names in the Indian and global automotive space and has also served clients in the industrial and energy space across Asia. Mr. Raja Parthasarathy is the Managing Director and Co-Head of Morgan Stanley India Infrastructure. Earlier, he was a partner at IDFC Private Equity and had worked with Jet Airways, UBS, Goldman Sachs, and Lehman Brothers. Mr. Parthasarathy has an MBA from INSEAD, MA in Economics from Tufts University, and a BA from Hamilton College. Mr. Pratik Pal is the CEO of TATA Digital, a future-ready company that focuses on creating consumer-centric, high-engagement digital products. Mr. Pal has strong domain knowledge of consumer-centric businesses and a deep understanding of how new digital technologies are disrupting industries. He holds an engineering degree in electronics and telecommunications from Jadavpur University and an MTech in computer science from the Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata. He serves on many boards and also holds a fellowship in the Indian National Academy of Engineering. Dr. Prashant Deshpande is the Senior Vice President of HR Strategy and Planning at Reliance Retail Limited. He oversees talent strategy, organization design, and organization building for multiple digital and consumer businesses within the Reliance Group. Earlier, he was Vice President, HR Strategy and Planning at Reliance Jio Infocom Limited. Dr. Deshpande is a chemical engineer from the Institute of Chemical Technology, ICT, Mumbai. He holds a master's in personal management and industrial relations from Tata Institute of Social Sciences.
May I now request Mr. Alfonse to take it forward.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, distinguished speakers. Let me first start off by thanking MMA and especially Captain Vijay for giving us the opportunity to collaborate. Last week I was part of a judge panel where we went through a few presentations. Some of you are already part of the team here. And one of the presentations that really stood out for me was on inclusive growth, and it talked about what the specific company was doing, and they had set up a full glass manufacturing plant, which was completely, driven by women, right from the plant head to the security, right? So, wonderful presentations and thanks for the opportunity. I think we heard from the earlier speakers about the India resilience and growth story. And we also heard from Jaideep Brar in his keynote address. And he talked about how corporations need to take transformative aspirations, right, to be part of the nation building effort. And inclusivity is not an option, right? It's a mandate going forward. But my mind keeps going back to the thought that one of the speakers earlier had talked about, right, which is there is a dissonance between the economic growth and some of the national indicators, especially around the Human Development Index, and that leads me to think about, is there a challenge in execution of some of the strategies that we have, put down over the past few decades. And I'm reminded of a famous quote by Mr. Morris Chang. He's a Taiwanese American entrepreneur. Strategy without execution is aimless, and execution without strategy is useless. Being a management professional and having served clients on margin transformation programs for the past many years, I understand the importance of having a good balance between both these dimensions, right? Today, we'll be hearing from speakers from diverse background and about the specific challenges and also what is their perspective on, how India should progress in order to be a $5 trillion economy by 2025 and potentially a $7 trillion economy by 2027, right? While infrastructure continues to be the bedrock of GDP, I think contributions from other sectors are also going to be equally important, right? And I'll very briefly talk about, 2 or 3 sectors which I believe should significantly move the needle when it comes to economic growth. We all heard from the last session the importance of manufacturing and specifically semicon manufacturing and the strides that India has made, especially with Make in India. Manufacturing, especially in the context of global supply chains being shifting and India taking a more pivotal role, especially in semicon manufacturing, is going to be critical, and we've already started taking steps towards that direction. I think the second sector which will play an important role is agriculture, and not just focus on domestic but also export oriented, and linked to agriculture is also the logistics and cold chain, right? Given that there is a lot of wastage that happens after the produce. The third sector, which I believe will play a critical role, is tourism, right? We've now started seeing a lot of so-called revenge tourism that is happening. So not just attracting international tourists, but also domestic travel and domestic tourists will play a significant role, right? While all of these are some of the sectors that will drive growth, technology is going to play a pivotal role, right? And last but not the least, we have a young productive population. Globally, we've seen economies like Japan, have already started showing aging population. Economies like China will soon see a decline in the productive population given the policies that were implemented a few decades back to control population. Right? That puts India in a very strong position, not just for now, but 25 years, for the next 25 years, right? And I think it'll also be important to look at what do we do to ensure that we keep this productive population, as part of driving growth for the country, right? So let me just pause there and then invite Mr. Raja Parthasarathy to talk about different sectors and specifically on the infrastructure space and what are his thoughts on this.
Thank you, Alfonse. So I start out by saying that the view at Morgan Stanley is that from $3.3 trillion, which is the size of our economy roughly today, we expect that by 2031, we will be a roughly $7.5 trillion economy. So more than doubling over the next roughly 9 years. And that is based on the foundation of 3 things. One, that we are increasingly living in a multipolar world I'll talk about that and specifically what that means in a moment. Two, our commitment to the Paris Climate Accords in terms of targets we will reach as a nation. And three, the high investments we're making in infrastructure, particularly public digital infrastructure, which in our view will drive much of the growth that we will see. So those are the three foundational aspects of our thesis. The pillars that sit above them are, one, that if you look at much of the last 30 years after the fall of the Soviet Union, the assumption has been driven by a Washington consensus that we are living in a world that is increasingly converging economically and politically. I think the last 2 or 3 years have shown us that is not the case. So we are living in a world that is becoming multipolar, that is in a sense deglobalizing, at the same time as we have high aspirations in terms of our own objectives of exporting more. We have, I think, credibly become an office to the world over the last roughly 20, 25 years since our IT revolution started. I think there's credible cause to believe that we can become the factory to the world over the next 10 years or so. But that is going to happen in the context of a world that is deglobalizing and that is increasingly moving away from a consensus that we are all converging economically and politically. The US and China will increasingly vie for competition, particularly in areas of technology and financial services and security. There are players around the side, Europe, Japan, India, that will vie for influence and opportunity. But the reality is that it is going to be a complex environment, far more complex environment in which to operate than what we've been used to over the last 20 years. The second pillar that I talked about is commitment to the Paris Climate Accords. If you think about what we have committed to become a net zero nation by 2070 and all of the intermediate targets we've set for ourselves, there's no doubt to us that decarbonization remains one of the largest opportunities in front of us. It's not just a carbon intensity of our economy, but everything from electric mobility to how we produce and energy efficiency and so on. So decarbonization to us creates jobs, millions of jobs if you think about the value chain involved in decarbonization. Decarbonization creates opportunity in terms of what companies can make, export, and produce. And decarbonization has the added benefit of doing good for our planet. So decarbonization to us is a critical component, a critical foundation on which the house over the next 20 years or so will be built. And the third is digitization. Many of you would be familiar with India Stack, but India Stack is one of the most revolutionary aspects of public digital infrastructure that's been developed anywhere in the world over the last 30, 40, 50 years. Beginning with the foundational aspect of Aadhaar, we have transformed the way India or Indians buy, lend, invest, and save documents. And we will increasingly transform the way that we will lend, insure, and engage in other financial products. So India Stack to us, it's a low-cost, transaction-led system, open system that in our view has enormous potential to unlock growth over the next 10 years and even beyond. Specifically to infrastructure was the area that I look most closely at. If you just look at the history of infrastructure over the last 20 years, and really beginning in 2000, until the year 2000, the government installed, owned, maintained, operated almost all of our public infrastructure. And starting in 2001, 2002, private entrepreneurs started to play a role in infrastructure development. Today, you look at the largest airports in the country, and they're all owned by private operators. You look at the largest ports in the country, they're all owned by private operators. You look at the largest telecom companies in the country, they're all owned by private operators. So the privatization of infrastructure ownership, I believe, has transformed the way that we experience traveling or mobile services or anything else we consume. We remain very positive on the outlook for private ownership of infrastructure and development infrastructure over the next 20, 30 years. Renewable energy, I think, is the best example. Today, almost all of the renewable energy growth in our country in terms of installed renewable energy capacity is driven by the private sector. That is an amazing statistic when you think about it. Today, we have over 100 gigawatts of installed renewable energy capacity. Almost all of that is owned by the private sector. There are other sectors we invest in today, but in the interest of time, I'll pause here and invite the other speakers to come on. I think Pratik covers digital for Tata Digital, so we'll be positioned to talk about that in a different context. But I just wanted to offer a few insights into how we think about the next 10 years from our perspective. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all distinguished guests, my fellow speakers. See, I know today a lot has been spoken about India's growth and numbers. I come from a very unique background. I spent 27 years in TCS serving global clients, looking at application of technologies for customers across the globe. Last 3 years, we are developing the consumer-facing platform for India, for India's consumers. So last 3 years has been a great realization for me personally of what technology can do elsewhere, can also do here, what are our challenges, but more importantly, what we need to do. When AI works for US, AI may not work for us in the same way. And I will give examples and perspectives of what it means for India. First, I think few numbers which are important to describe India, right? And I will talk from a consumer standpoint, right? We all know that the second largest internet users in the world. 97% of PIN codes have got one delivery in the last 1 year. So 97% of PIN codes of India, people can reach a good or a service. We have a great payment infrastructure. But more importantly, by 2025-26, 70% of the transactions that happen will happen from tier 2, 3, 4 cities. Only 30% will happen from the top 8 to 10 cities of India. And that means a lot, because that's the change that India will see. And that means there's a change in how we have to also see how technology can drive that, because it is about rural towns, cities, tier 2, tier 3, and not Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, 70%. Now, there are 2, 3 classes of I think, challenges of India, but also I'll tell how technology can solve it. At one hand, there's a big digitization at scale happening. Every industry is transforming. Manufacturing, retail, utilities, banks, everybody is using technologies like IoT, blockchain, some amount of AI to transform their industries. Each one of them. Banks have become neobank, digital banks. Everything you can access through a loan you can take today digitally. The question is, who are the consumers of these products and services? And what do they have? The consumers of these products and services, if they are the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 rural towns and cities, that's what their market is, because that is where the unmet needs will be solved. But what do they have? They only have a phone. Their only interface to these products and services is the phone. And unlike US, it is not a smartphone yet. Yes, by 2027, 28, maybe 1 billion people will have phones, 800 million will have some form of smartphone, network connectivity will be better, all of that will happen. But we have to understand that the actual consumers will be people whose only interface is one phone. You will check your BP in a phone. You will order you will talk to a doctor over phone. That's what will happen. You will file an FIR in a village through a phone. That's your interface. So, first of all, your phone then becomes your super app. If there's one super app that will truly transform everything, is a phone. But then it has to have all of these applications in the consumer phone to take advantage of so much of transformation that's happening across the world, across India. A bank can become digital. There's no problem with that. But end of the day, the consumer of that bank is a person in a village. He has only a phone to access that bank. His personal loan, he can only apply to that phone. Now, what are the problems with that? And then there comes classes of people. So there are some class of people who are literate. There are some classes of people who don't understand English. There are classes of people who are senior citizens, which will increase greater than 60 years after some time, who will need convenience and simplicity. It is very simple. Technology, a lot of people say technology should not make things complicated. It has to be simple, convenient. So what are the technologies that can make this happen for India? Everything should have it has to be regional language. Everything I should be able to speak in my local language. It has to be voice. It has to be regional. 3, it has to be fast. You're talking about still a 3G phone that can make a personal loan in a remote connectivity fast. 4, it has to be secure. Because what will happen is, with the explosion of digital, fraud will increase. So then security has to be very important, which we call cyber security. So all this, if it has to be fast, reliant, secure in terms of accessing this goods and services, and then it has to be regional, voice. Now, are these technologies there today? They are there. But the problem is not about the presence of these technologies. The challenge that technology should solve for India is scale. None of these technologies has scaled. None. Nobody can say that I have a voice-enabled interface anywhere at scale. Nowhere. Nowhere. Google, Microsoft has been working on it. They have not yet been able to crack it. More than 7 regional languages. Maximum 7. So the real challenge in front of us, if we have to transform and it is true that the entire digital revolution is going to happen, and all these people, 70% of those people are going to be from this, then we have to apply our technology to solve this biggest problem not at a scale of 1 million, 10 million, 20 million, at a scale of 1 billion people. And to me, it's a huge technology challenge that is in front of us. Can India do it? Absolutely, we're the only country who can do it. This is a problem that people should love to solve it. Google and Microsoft are waiting to solve this problem. Waiting. Because they believe there's the only problem in the world that excites them. Nowhere else. So that's that's one part. I truly believe that technology, all of us should spend, and being obviously from experience, developing this platform for last 3 years, we have, and I said that is the learning that we had for India and elsewhere. That's number one. Number two, it is not about consuming this product and service. It's about delivering it. metro cities today, you get a Swiggy Instamart delivering in 10 minutes. You get a electronics delivered. We did it for Chroma to a town, tier 4 town. It took us 15 days to deliver it. 15 days, because in supply chain infrastructure is still not there. Will people wait for 15 days? No, that's not the thing that can happen in the future. So what we have to do is also build, and I think that the global supply chain, there is an infrastructure part, there is an investment part, but more importantly, technology with AI and automation and robotics can do a sea change in revolutionizing supply chain for delivering these goods and services to tier 4 towns within a reasonable amount of time that customers can expect. So I think there are two large things at scale that technology should absolutely solve. They are getting solved today. The biggest research for Google and Microsoft is about extending the 7 languages to 14 languages. Is about recognizing voice in every possible, it will take time. It's not easy because scale is the most thing that is preventing it. Then I said there are two challenges of India. That's the second is there are some complex problems of India, which are unique to India, which is on climate, which is on healthcare, and other areas. Here, I feel between the startup ecosystem, between educational institutes and industries have to collaborate to really drive thought leadership and positioning for India. Why can't a drug get discovered here? Because we did coin. It's highly possible, and we should. It's the second class of problem. There are deep tech problems that can be solved in India. We should really take pole position there. We should not have some other country solving those problems. It can be solved here, and it has been solved before. I mean, coin was the biggest example. Within 1 year, how we solved it at scale, collaborating around so many people, and that's the second class that technology should solve. So I think, in essence, if you ask me, India's problems are unique. But if there is one thing that can truly be solved, it is technology. Only technology can solve these problems of 1 billion consumers to have a very simple, secured, convenient life. Thank you very much.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, my sincere thanks to Madras Management Association and Captain Vijay Kumar for giving me opportunity to speak here. So we are now from strategy to execution. The strategic imperative for India's century is very clear from our demographic advantage. There is no doubt about it. But the execution really will decide whether we will be able to really seize this opportunity. Because there are examples of countries who have had opportunities and have not been able to seize also. And this opportunity, which is in the form of largely our talent advantage because of our young workforce, how to tap during the execution, project by project, organization by organization, will decide whether we will be able to really unlock the economic potential that we have as a country. Surely it can be done. Now, how to actually get it done? We have learned in the management in economics 101, land, labor, capital, and organization. 4 factors of production are there. Labor is a very, very peculiar form of production, a peculiar factor of production. There is a quote by one of the eminent economists, Nobel laureate Paul Samuelson, that the market for labor is different from market for dead fish. The humans, when they are put at work, all the complexity that is there in a human being, they bring to the workplace. You have to master the art of managing that complexity scientifically and get your strategic objectives accomplished. We have 477 million currently the workers in the country, and out of it, over the next 1 decade, it is, I think, 1/4 of the total global working age population is going to be in India, and we are going to bring in a lot more workforce into the workforce. Some of it may be in organized workforce, some of it in the gig economy, some of it even what we used to consider as unpaid work, because of unpaid nature of the work outside the workforce we used to treat. Now there are people who are saying that women, etc., we are underestimating how much they contribute to the economy. So this is the state. Now, what capabilities we need to have, we need to cultivate in order to actually deliver the workforce productivity as a part of the overall productivity, total factor productivity of an economy. So there are 4 capabilities to my mind that are very, very critical to actually unleashing the workforce productivity. Your first is ability for right capacity, people capability and capacity planning, coupled with organization design. I was surprised the time of personal attention and effort during my Geo days. I was part of one of the early members of the Geo task force. We had just acquired the spectrum at Reliance, and till the launch, I was fortunate to be associated with the project. The amount of time, the intensity which was put in thinking through right organization design and people capability and capacity planning. This is extremely crucial, because how much each role in that you are envisaging in your organization design is going to cost you, how much output in terms of output and outcome it is going to deliver. You need to have clarity before you invest in those capabilities. There is detailing, enormous detailing, and there are no easy shortcuts. Surely, when you do detailed planning amidst any kind of uncertainty, there is going to be revision. But the need for subsequent revision doesn't reduce the burden of early planning. That is very critical when it comes to mobilization of the talent. And you have to commit what you can deliver. Your jobs have to be sustainable. You can't just in India offer with hire and fire kind of mindset, the kind of society we have. So the jobs that you are promising people, you should have the economic rationale, productivity to genuinely continue with that kind of employment. Second is developing people. Developing people is something which is going to be extremely critical, because developing people you can liken to the extraction of precious mineral. People were talking in the morning, the speakers, I listened to lithium and how precious the lithium is. There is tremendous lithium in the earth's crust, but why it is scarce? Because the really extractable deposits are scarce. Same is the case with talent also. The 1.4 billion population doesn't mean that all the talent can be productively employed. The development investments are very critical. And in development, corporates are going to be very, they're going to have finishing touch role. They're never going to have bulk of the asset non-specific investments are going to be with education sector, and corporates are going to be playing the finishing, doing finishing touch role, making specific investments. Third is engaging the capital, is also engaging the human capital, the engaging the people is also very critical. And engaging productively is extremely critical. So engaging productively means right tooling, right training, job specific training, and finally giving people opportunity to have larger than their narrow focus contribution through greater voice and career development. Because we say that demography and democracy are our two critical pillars of our national competitive advantage. Our Prime Minister has said, many people have said. But this demography and democracy, how it translates into your workplace demographic planning and your workplace democracy is extremely crucial. Workplace democracy is giving voice to the people, not treating your workforce in a heavy-handed manner. Be it you may be hiring a CXO. One thing I've learned in 25 years of my HR practice is that you may be hiring a CXO or you may be hiring an associate. If your own mind, if you are hiring him with a mindset that he is a partner who is going to contribute in value creation and treat respectfully, it is going to be sustainable relationship. But otherwise, it is going to be a problematic relationship at whatever level. And the voice is going to, that you give to people will pay in multiple other ways. Apart from just mitigating any potential problems, it can unlock tremendous value in terms of unlocking the innovative, creative potential of the human beings. Because constrained workplaces cannot unleash the human productivity. And this is one of the core responsibilities as the corporate leaders, as managers, that you don't kill that creativity, kill that potential. In simple English terms, if your employee starts thinking, "Karne do jo karna hai, mere baap kya jata hai." If you create a culture wherein your ordinary last employee, say in my case in retail, my associate, if he starts thinking like that, I have failed. If he thinks that this is my company, this is my store, and if he starts engaging with all mind and heart capabilities he has, they have succeeded. This is very critical. And another last point that I have to say in human resource management capabilities is the risk management in the human resource, because the technology trajectory is such that your bulk of the workforce is going to be somewhere in the sectors going forward. New jobs are going to be in the new technologies. You know that, I think we have learned that from a variety of work, the technologies are prone to hype cycles. And capital markets are also, Mr. Parthasarathy will acknowledge that they're prone to hype cycles. So what effect these hype cycles and market cycles have on the talent? You need to plan for it. How you plan for it? That when you have to hire responsibly, and when you have to skill, you have to little bit employ people with broad-based skills so that they are employable, not just within your own industry, but if needed, if whole industry goes through an industry cyclical shock, what will you do with the people if you have people who have been extremely narrowly trained? So you need to have that little bandwidth to deploy people outside your own industry if required. And finally, you have a network and mechanisms that if at all you have to downsize with really human angle in mind. Help people outplace. Don't just put them on street. We don't have welfare state in the country. We've just started the journey of beginning that. Bulk of the welfare of Indian families comes from the employment or work that they have. So with that, so across these life cycles, stages of engaging the human potential, human resources, if we all, be it a MSME, be it a large organization at our levels, we try to build these capabilities and really nurture individually at enterprise level and at national level, we will achieve our potential to really turn India's century into reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratik. Let me start with Mr. Raja. What, according to you, India's trajectory, right, especially in the medium and the long term, and what is the role that infrastructure will play, towards the economic growth?
So I think China has been a great example of how they invested in infrastructure well before the growth of their economy. And I think because they invested in infrastructure going back to the 1990s, when China opened up 1990, 1991, the entire Pearl River Delta area became a hub of manufacturing and export, which could not have happened had they not invested way ahead of demand. I think our challenge has been that we are investing in infrastructure once the demand has already been established. In a sense, we're playing catch up. That to me is the most significant aspect of how our infrastructure-led model of development is different from China's. China's was led by infrastructure. We are superimposing infrastructure upon an existing functioning economy. But I do believe that the speed at which we are developing infrastructure is also quite remarkable. Today, if I just take the city of Bombay, where I live, there are 4 large projects taking place simultaneously. There is the Mumbai Metro, there's a coastal road, there's a Trans-Harbour Sea Link, and a new airport that's coming up in Navi Mumbai. And when I drive through the city, and some of you have been to Bombay recently, I'm sure, there is a lot of traffic and work is going on around the clock. Now, there was a time not too long back when work would stop once the sun set. But work is going on around the clock. And so we are working very hard to put in place the infrastructure that we need to make our cities more livable and to make business easier. I want to talk about technology, a point that Pratik made earlier, just giving an illustration of what some companies are doing. So one of our portfolio companies is a company called Recycle out of Hyderabad. And they've put in place to address a waste management challenge, the first deposit return system in the country. And just to give you a sense for what it is, so they have done it. They have done it in Kedarnath. They noticed that on the trek up to the temple, there was a lot of discarded plastic bottles, plastic packets, and so on, which is turning out to be a huge environmental problem, cleanup problem. So they worked with the local authorities to put on every plastic bottle sold in any of the shops that you load up on before you start the trek, a QR code. So you pay an extra 10 rupees for a bottle of water at the time you purchase it. And at the point where the trek ends, there is a booth where you return the plastic bottle and you get your 10 rupees back once it is scanned. That has cut down the incidence of wastage by about 80%. It's a simple, elegant solution to what is a common problem everywhere. So I think we are developing sensible, intelligent, indigenous solutions, in a sense, to tackle problems at scale. And this is a problem at scale that we will see more and more of.
One very interesting question from the audience. Given how does Morgan Stanley at a global level view India's Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative? Is it seen as an opportunity or a threat at a global scale?
So if I just take Morgan Stanley, today we have 11,000 employees in the country. That number will be up to 15,000 in the next 6 months. It is our second largest country in terms of employees in the world after the US. The third largest is the UK, which has 7,500. So in terms of full-time employees, we are the second largest country for Morgan Stanley globally. We have operations in Bombay and Bangalore today. As a firm overall, I don't think we read too much into Atmanirbhar Bharat as an opportunity or a threat. I think what we look for is the financialization of savings, which is the opportunity that the market opportunity that we are active in, and entrepreneurship, because the business that I run is a business that is involved in investing in entrepreneur-led companies. Many of these are first-generation entrepreneur-led companies. So to the extent companies are doing anything to meet our Atmanirbhar Bharat objectives or our digital revolution objectives or anything else, I think that is a fantastic opportunity all around.
During your address, you also talked about moving from India being an office to a factory. I think for some time now, we've seen China as the manufacturing hub of the world. Right? If India has to take up this journey from moving to from an office to a factory of the world, how do we ensure that we sustain that position going forward?
So there's lots of parts in that question, which I'd like to sort of open up a little bit. One is, if you look at our services industry, it's about $180, $190 billion. We expect that will go to $520, $530 billion over the next 10 years. So that services-led growth is going to continue. Manufacturing, in our view, today is about 15% of the economy. It'll grow to about 21, 22% of the economy. So we'll add another 7 percentage points or so in terms of manufacturing's contribution to the economy. It's not going to happen overnight. I think there was an article recently on Bloomberg which talked about one of the challenges that Apple is having with its manufacturing of the iPhone 14 in India is that the rejection rates are quite high. Rejection rates as high as 30, 40, 50%, compared to in China, where they've streamlined manufacturing, which are rejection rates in the low single digits. So it is going to take us some time to bring rejection rates down to be able to be a credible manufacturing alternative. It's not so much about whether we can set up factories or have the land or where the government makes power available and so on. It's more about the availability of skilled talent. And I think we will hear more about that in a moment. But that remains to us the single largest challenge. Are we creating enough skilled talent to be able to handle increasingly complex manufacturing, especially if you look at technology-related manufacturing, high-end auto components, and so on? You need higher levels of skilled labor than you do if you're manufacturing base chemicals, as an example.
Thank you. I think next I would want to ask Pratik. um, uh, Which one or two, technologies that you see are kind of most exciting, which would really help drive the next gen growth for India?
I think needless to say, it has to be first AI, right? Because most talked about now in the context of ChatGPT and all, but I will tell you why it is most exciting. See, I think the good thing about AI is it can solve different classes of problems, number one, because it encompasses many problems, right? I think the first class of and which are very unique to India, and that is why I think AI is very important. The first class of problem which I truly believe is the problem of the masses, which is the vernacular and the voice, which it can probably only AI can solve it. But it has to learn and it has to be trained on large data sets, and ChatGPT, whatever those models are, has proven that it can learn and on large models and it can interpret various languages. So that class of problems will become very unique for the masses of it as consumers. I think the second class of problems that probably AI can obviously solve are more deeper around energy and sustainability, which is happening today and probably more in the, I think in the research areas, but energy I think is happening more and more. So that's why, and both energy and sustainability are super important for India, right? Both of them, because we are going for energy transition big time, right? So I think that's where AI becomes very critical to solve the India's problem. And third, I think AI can truly solve a lot of financial problems, financial things of India, right? So lending, credit. I think today there are models that rely on a certain way to give a credit or lending. Maybe there are different ways of alternate models that can be experimented, knowing more about the customer, much more, which can be done. And a lot of work is also happening. So a lot of, again, AI very big in the financial space, which is very important for India. But the good thing is, of all these three, AI is that India today is the second largest country who has got the largest data science talent in India, right? And if you see every possible global company have the data science hubs in India. So, but the thing that has to happen is, while the talent is concentrated in the big cities, I think there's a huge opportunity for talent to also become dense in tier 2, tier 3 cities and hubs to be established there. There are hubs like Nagpur, Bhubaneswar, Madurai, Trichy, Coimbatore, which can be established as very big hubs for some of this work, because then you are actually making the entire talent at scale. And that requires a very different level of learning, development, training, and all of that. Right? But that's very important if we really want to democratize AI and we want to position ourselves as the #1 nation tomorrow who is in AI. So your top, I mean, I give a long answer to your question.
You had also talked about scalability as one of the big challenges. Do you see any of the new upcoming technologies solving that problem, which some of the Microsofts and Googles of the world have been trying to solve?
Not some already it is being, so 5G is one, right? So if 5G is another big one that can solve the scalability problem, because network connectivity is one big issue in many places. So when I say scalability, I mean scalability in the farthest corner of India. That's what I meant. The reach, right? When there are 32,000 pin codes today, that can be reached today by the large companies. But there are another 50,000 that can't be reached today. Right? That's the scalability problem, right? So I think 5G will be a big one, I feel. Also, very important that when we build all this software, security is very important. And I think cyber security, though I did not mention, will become very important for India as we build more and more large applications for the masses. So in this too.
I think one of the questions from the audience is also around Atmanirbhar Bharat in software, right? Windows operating system and Office software. Do you see us, taking Atmanirbhar Bharat, especially the software domain?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because I think when more and more software in the Apple phone or some phone will be done in India, right? So, there is no question. So if you little bit declassify the problem, right? There are so many products are made in India today, so many SaaS companies in India today that there are two here itself in Chennai. There are probably 1,000 world famous companies use those SaaS software. So absolutely right. They are, if the largest, the Fortune 10 companies can buy software from this product companies in Chennai base, nothing else can say more than that, right? So whether it is in software, even whether it is in research, whether it's everywhere, I think we are, the world will depend on us. Thank you.
Yes. For you, I think just taking the leap from the discussion around technology, how can technology be an enabler for learning and development, especially for blue collar workers at scale?
Yeah, this is very interesting, the way technology is improving our capability to support blue collar workers to learn is enormous. I'll give you an example. 13 years ago, when I joined Reliance Retail, before moving to Jio, in my first phase of first stint in Reliance Retail, we developed an architecture for Reliance Retail Academy. So in the academy, in the operations academy, the bulk of our blue collar equivalent workforce, whether it's a service workforce in stores. So I don't know what color you will assign, but from similar socioeconomic strata, people coming in there, and we genuinely wanted all these people to learn and develop them. There was a commitment right from chairman across levels in the leadership that you have to develop these people and get your store managers, get your cluster leaders from these blue collar workers, develop them enough to actually develop some leaders from them. But what were the tools and mechanisms we have at that point of time, 13 years ago? Very little. So what we did is we ran train the trainer programs, wherein we said that first train the store managers well, so that they can deliver the training to the associates and learn. And every manager becomes a trainer. That was our slogan. That's how, through extensively human, very, very labor intensive process, we went ahead with large scale training rollout for a distributed workforce. But now things are very different, extremely different. The options, the solutions we have for learning are now MyJio stores, which are small 2-member stores. There is one store manager, one assistant store manager. Who will train whom? So, but we are not constrained, because we have created bite-sized learning content. We just push them through the mobile apps. There is a role readiness certification through quizzes. People take it wherever they are in the country. They take those online, and bulk of the training is handled in a hybrid manner, with online being a large part of the mix. Now, next revolution, where it is going to come, is still so far, bulk of the learning which has gone digital, has been more at the level of knowledge, information, at the level of skills training. Still, the technology is yet to be used to its hilt, to its potential. That's going to be the next revolution in adopting technology for learning. And say, for example, in whatever environment you have, you want to put your blue collar workforce in, you can create now, you will be able to create virtual environments, augmented reality. You will be able to train them in very real life-like situations before you put them onto the practice, even in high-stake kind of interactions. And some of the work that we are doing through some of the acquired startups, for example, who work with us in augmented reality space, they are doing remarkable stuff in terms of the training the warehouse workers, etc., creating some interesting content, interesting solutions, not just content, but solutions for the workforce training in the warehouses.
One last question around gig economy. Right? I think we are seeing increasing trend of people wanting to work part time, and right now we are seeing a lot of that in the software space. Do you see that translating into especially project type businesses, or non-software areas?
Gig economy is going to be much larger than what software industries see are right now. I'll give example of retail. In retail, now retail is moving from unorganized to organized in traditional way to really omni-channel retail, right? As an industry, it is moving towards omni-channel retail. So in omni-channel retail, and there even the smaller stores are getting now aggregated in digital platforms. That's what we are planning, we are attempting in the B2B space, right? The merchant aggregations, small kiranas and all, and really bringing them and giving them benefits of the modern retail, what typically modern retail is. And but key workforce in this solution is the people who go and deliver the goods to customers' premises, because customers have now become more choosy, demanding, and they want things at the doorstep. So where will our bulk of the workforce come from? Bulk of the workforce is going to be gig, because you do not want to take fixed cost for such a high volume and high variability cost item, right? Which is delivery. And there is ecosystem, local players are more nimble, intelligent, they have networks, local networks to source talent and get the work done through them. So you go for gig. I think gig is going to be, to my mind, software is going to be smaller in gig compared to some of these transportation, logistics, last mile delivery. These are going to be the primary drivers of the gig employment in the country. And software, of course, software gig jobs might be more premium jobs. They will be highly paid jobs. They will be highly talked about jobs. But in terms of sheer number, the volume of the gig jobs will come from really large physical gig workforce.
Thanks. Prashant. I think with that, I thank Mr. Raja, Mr. Pratik and Prashant, for your time. And, very insightful session. I hope the audience was also able to grasp, some of the insights each of the speakers talked about. I think with that, I'll formally uh,
Thank you, Mr. Alphonse. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a round of applause. Once again, a very complex topic handled very well by all the panelists, particularly Mr. Alphonse. May I request Mr. Senthil Nathan of Tranfac Industries and Mr. Suresh Raman, President of MMA, to join us on the stage too. Mr. Mahalingam, the convention chairman, please. May I request the panelists to step forward and accept a token of appreciation, a memento from MMA, please. So that brings us to the close of all the three business sessions or the special sessions that we had today. And now we are heading to the